This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Oh, we got a big show coming up for a big night of hockey. The NHL Frozen Frenzy is upon us. All 32 teams in the National Hockey League going at it tonight in staggered starts starting at 5 p.m. our time, including a 7:45 puck drop at Canada Life Centre with the Central Division matchup between your Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. Going to be a real fun show today. We're going to kick it around the league with Whyno. Stephen Whyno of the AP is going to jump on, and we'll talk a little bit about this endeavor that the NHL is getting into, as well as the start of the season around the league. We'll get Whyno's thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets, as well as everything that's to come tonight. And then we'll really dial it in with the latest on the club with Mike McIntyre, who's going to join us a little bit later on in the program. We've also got some audio from Scott Arniel, both from yesterday, talking about being without Rick Bowness for the next while. Obviously still thinking and wishing nothing but the best for Rick's wife, Judy, who's recovering in hospital. Hope everything will go well, and really just everybody praying that that'll be a quick and full recovery for Judy. But it's Arnie on the bench tonight. We'll hear from the interim head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. We'll kind of dive in a little bit more to what we have. And the one thing, we were so busy yesterday, coming out of the weekend with the Jets' big win on Saturday, the Bombers' win clinching the West, and everything else going on, National Football League and whatnot. There were so many people in the chat yesterday talking about Connor Hellebuyck's after-hours interview with Scott Oake on Hockey Night in Canada after the game. We're going to have a few highlights of that later on in the program. So if you did miss it, you'll definitely be able to check it out here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And I got to tell you, I've watched it in its entirety 3 times. It is just so interesting that I think a lot of Jet fans, if you haven't seen it already, you'll want to catch some of it. So we'll do that later on in the program, as well as a little bit more audio from the locker room with the Jets. And then, we might need a little more time for the Coolbet Lines tonight, because we will go through all 16 games in the National Hockey League. And, of course, we've got a big Game 7 in the NLCS after the D-backs forced a 7th game, winning in Philly last night. And unfortunately, I had a great night with our lock shop wagers for the Monday Nighter, but I had the Astros, and they're out. Texas Rangers going to the World Series after winning Game 7. So we got a lot going on. Oh, by the way, it's NBA opening night tonight as well. Hell of a night to post up on the couch. If you're not going down to Canada Life Centre to take on the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues, I will be doing that. Hopefully we will see you there. Listen, just before we bring in Reem, have to thank the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Consolidated Supply, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, Winnipeg Jets, Nick and Nicky DQ, F Apparel, Vita Health, Wallace & Wallace Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, and Modern Man Barbershops. And we will definitely get to a why not question of the day for our friends at Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get Michael Remis in here. And Remo, big night last night, but a much bigger night tonight. You ready for all 32 teams dropping the puck this evening?
Of course. I'm in a really good mood, Huss. Yeah, we had a good night. There was only one hockey game on. Sabres, Montreal, and I don't know if you saw us. Sabres, it's concerns with their attendance as well. But, that Monday Night Football game was great, and we had 2 baseball playoff games. I want to proudly say I picked both of them wrong. So Adolis Garcia, guys, he's turned into a superstar here. And then we got a Game 7 NBA tipping off. And 16 hockey games, staggered start times, just amazing stuff. And we'll have Jets Blues 7:45. I'm pumped. Oh, and the Jets are wearing Heritage Blues
Yes,
tonight.
they are.
So
yes, they are.
It's great.
Hey, by the way, I don't know. Do you have some sort of thing on your audio right now?
Oh, do I?
Sort of sounds like you're in a locker or something like that. It's not. It's not an echo.
How about now?
Yeah. That's.
I think it was just
right
doubled for you. You're good now.
I gotcha. All right. Well, anyways, yeah. Listen, I mean, we got. Let me just quickly shout out the Viking fans out there. What a win for Minnesota last night. And I know our pal Connor probably won't want to hear this because I know he's a big Niner fan. His favorite player, Deebo Samuel, wasn't playing. They certainly missed him last night. But holy smokes, it was Kirk Cousins on it last night. And that, for Viking fans that had thought that this season was maybe slipping away, that win last night, Remo, to get them to 3-4. The Vikings now have the longest current winning streak in the NFC at 2. Big loss for the Lions right now. The Bears and Packers aren't going anywhere. I really think that the Vikings got right back into the thick of things. Their schedule eases up a little bit. I mean, they've had some real tough games with, San Francisco, Kansas City. Kirk Cousins was dealing last night, and the Minnesota Vikings are very much back in the thick of things when it comes to making the playoffs in the NFL.
Yeah, I thought Kirk Cousins couldn't win in primetime us. I thought he couldn't get it done. Monday Night Football certainly, look behind the 8 ball without Justin Jefferson, Braylon Addison. Braylon Addison's on the Red Blacks.
Jordan Addison.
Jordan Addison. Sorry, I got my leagues confused. I mean, the rookie on fire yesterday. So nice win for the Vikings. They're back in it. And entertaining game last night. And, hey, getting us ready for a big day, big sports day today in front of the TV.
Yeah, listen, let's get to the Jets right off the bat because we will kind of get away from the home team and go all around the league coming up with Whyno in a few minutes. But, one of the things that, we should get to right off the bat that we talked about yesterday, but we didn't have the audio in as we were doing the program, was the latest with Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel taking over as the interim head coach while Bones is away. And, it was quite obvious if you've seen or listened to this already, that it was a heavy atmosphere, I think, around the Winnipeg Jets. And again, the team has just said to please respect the privacy of the family right now. Obviously, that's what everyone will do. But the Bowness family and Judy in particular in everybody's thoughts right now. And I mean, let's just get to what Arnie had to say right off the bat about Rick Bowness. He met the media yesterday, and obviously hockey was pretty secondary when everyone was talking about the current situation with Rick and his wife.
Yeah, I mean, obviously our thoughts and prayers go to Judy and Rick, and very serious, tough time for them right now. We'll just wait and go day to day with this. See obviously how she progresses, and see how Rick's doing. But everybody's certainly feeling it. It's part family here, and it's a big part of what we talk about all the time. And obviously it really hits everybody hard.
Well, I mean, certainly it's family first. Within that team and the organization, Rick Bowness. I think every Jet fan kind of thinks of Rick Bowness sort of as sort of family. I mean, he is such a great character, has so much experience, has been here through generations. I mean, there's older folks that remember Rick Bowness being a member of the Winnipeg Jets and coaching back in the 80s. And now, of course, he's back in 2023 as the bench boss for his second season here in Winnipeg. And, he will be missed. But I do really believe that the team is going to do everything they can to rally around this situation, rally around Scott Arniel on the bench, and certainly try and win one for Rick and Judy while he is away from the club. One of the other things that, we saw the change, Remo, and we talked about this yesterday. Listen, it was a tough start for Mason Appleton, and I know a lot of people thought that Appleton maybe wasn't the right fit for Scheifele and Connor. I think there was a couple maybe more obvious choices, but the ability, if it worked to have Appleton up there, would have allowed the Lowry line with Iafallo and Niederreiter stay together, which to me is, is a very difference-making line if they are together. That got changed quite quickly after Darnell Nurse's goal, and I don't think Appleton helped himself in his cause with that penalty that we discussed as well yesterday. So it's going to be Connor, Scheifele, Iafallo, Nemetsnikov in the middle of Perfetti and Ehlers. one of the other stories to watch is, and again, Rick Bowness was calling the shots. I'm not sure if Arnie will handle things differently, but we didn't see a lot of Cole Perfetti in a tied game in the end of the third period in overtime. But Perfetti's with Ehlers, Nemetsnikov in the middle, and Appleton and Iafallo have switched spots. So it's Lowry, Niederreiter, and Appleton. And as somebody mentioned in chat, the KGB line of Kupari, Gustafsson, and Morgan Barron. And I'll tell you what, Reem, I know we didn't spend a lot of time on this yesterday. And I'll be honest, I didn't kind of dig into the numbers, but just from the eye test of being in that building, I thought that fourth line through the second and third period when they were out really handled things well. And Rasmus Kupari is just a guy that makes things happen. I think Morgan Barron's playing really well, and David Gustafsson's making the most of his opportunity right now getting in the lineup. And that's a good thing because, with a lot of uncertainty about some of the lines up at the top, to be able to have a fourth line that can go over the boards and, earn the trust of the coach, that's a very good thing for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think those guys have been great, over the course of this last little bit. Basically, Gustafsson getting into the lineup after the really unfortunate injury to Gabriel Vilardi last week.
Yeah, and talk about Rasmus Kupari, Huss, making an impact. You see him on the forecheck. I don't know if you saw this. It came out yesterday. NHL announcing these edge stats from the player track. I think they got a chip in the jerseys, and they finally released all these numbers. And, they have skating distance, skating speed, shot location, zone time. And I think it surprised just about anyone who follows the NHL that when they tracked skating speed, the max speed anyone has reached this season, led by Winnipeg Jets forward Rasmus Kupari at 23.95 miles per hour. That's ahead of, that's 0.4 miles per hour ahead of Marty Necas, ahead of Rowensky, ahead of Kempe, ahead of Point. Who's in there? Byfield, Sanderson, Athanasiou, McKinnon. So, anyone can go fast in a straight line, but how fast can you go in an actual game? And Rasmus, and you saw it, I think, in that, that game against Florida where he had the forecheck and set up Barron for the goal. He's had a couple breakaways. He's looked good. So we like what we've seen. And here's some numbers, us showing just how fast Rasmus Kupari is. Incredible.
Maybe it's the WST bump. We went down last week.
Yes.
Sat down with him for the first time. Guy's playing his ass off right now and is the current speed demon of the National Hockey League. He has been great so far this season, and what an addition he has made. I think he was a guy that people didn't really know too much about other than he was a first-round pick. And I think some people thought that he was a bit of a throw-in in the trade, that the target was really for Vilardi and Alex Iafallo. Rasmus Kupari has been anything but a throw-in in this deal so far. But back to the top line, it's Alex Iafallo that is moving up and did move up and, played the majority of Saturday night with Connor and Scheifele. And, of course, has been a big part of the power play so far, the PP1 so far. Here's Scott Arniel on the move of Iafallo and his fit with 55 and 81.
Alex he's a guy that in LA's played with sort of all over Swiss Army knife, playing different situations, and he's played with top lines before, and just felt the other night that McDavid and Draisaitl were coming over the boards every time, and no shot against Apple or anything like that. It was just more that when we had the puck there that, Alex has a pretty good idea what he needs to do with it and what those Scheif and KC are doing. And like I said, he's had experience up there, and we'll just keep it as is for now.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel talking about, the move of Iafallo up to line one and what he brings to the table. And we'll look for more good things because, with Vilardi, that line looked as good as it had in a long time with Scheifele and Connor. And obviously a little bit tougher with Appleton and what he brings to the table playing in that role. But I think Alex Iafallo, once he gets a little more used to playing these players, could be a guy that brings a lot of what Gabriel Vilardi did to that line with that great start. The other guy, Remis, that we have to mention, and Scott Arniel talked about, was Josh Morrissey. And I remember our conversations going into the season, and we were talking about what could we expect from the Jet Blue line. I think everyone agreed that 44 was going to be the guy that was continuing to log big minutes. And coming out of that breakout season where he eclipsed 70 points, where would Josh Morrissey end up? And I know the betting line, I think, was 56.5. That was one of our favorite overs. And again, it all depends on whether a player can stay healthy. But there was Josh again, front and center on Saturday night against the top players on Edmonton throughout the game, and then assisting on Mark Scheifele's winning goal. And here's just another clip from Scott Arniel on Josh Morrissey following up his breakout season with another great start for Winnipeg.
He had a great breakout year last year, and I think he's all summer long he talked about doing it again, repeating it, and he knows how hard it is to do too, because he has a big target on him. I thought, and he actually, we talked about it the other day, that he felt that he was pushing it. He was jumping at the wrong times. He was, trying some things maybe that wasn't the time or the place for it. I thought the other night against Edmonton was without a doubt his best game. And, not only did he score a goal, made a great play on the overtime goal, had some great other looks for him, but he went against McDavid and Draisaitl the whole game. And that's another challenge, and that's the big thing we talked about this summer. You want to go to the next level, that we know what you can do offensively. It's also doing it defensively, and that's the challenge that he wants to be out against the other team's best players every night.
And listen, as much as we all correctly showered a lot of praise on Connor Hellebuyck for the way that he stood up after that early 2 goals by the Edmonton Oilers, I think that Arnie nailed it. I mean, the challenge that he had, Josh, I was speaking of, playing against Draisaitl and McDavid all game. It's often, Remo, the goals and the assists and the OT winner. I mean, that's what ends up on the highlight reel. But when you go back and break up the tape, it's all the little things and the defensive work that Josh Morrissey did that allowed the Jets to even be in the position to get back into the game and ending up winning it in the extra frame.
Yeah, it was just a great game all around. They cleaned up the play, and see Phyllis commenting in chat, J-Mo with some beautiful passing in that game. Makes it so much easier for the forwards. You can do clean breakouts, and you saw his compete and his battle when he's going head to head there with McDavid, and took him out. Eliminated him from overtime. I mean, I don't think it was intentional. It's just 2 guys battling for a puck, but Morrissey was certainly up to the challenge there on Saturday, and the Jets need him to be the number 1 D-man and follow up that breakout year he had last year.
Yeah, and he is playing with Dylan DeMello, who, for my money, I think rebounded pretty well from a tough game against the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, he had that one giveaway that, just mishandling the puck that turned into, that goal that really kind of, set Vegas, gave Vegas back in a game that the Winnipeg Jets were, I think for the majority of it, the better of them. But he seems to be a perfect yin to the yang of Josh Morrissey, Dylan Pionk together, and Nate Schmidt remains in the lineup. He came back in after Logan Stanley played the game against the Vegas Golden Knights. He'll be playing with Dylan Samberg. And there was some speculation that maybe, I heard K&R talk about it after the Vegas game, that maybe it would be time for Declan Chisholm to get into the mix. I didn't think that Saturday night in Edmonton was probably the place to do that, considering the guys that Todd McClellan would be able, or Jay Woodcroft, I should say, would be able to throw over the boards, especially with last change. But now that Schmidt is in, I think it's his position to lose, and we'll hear from Arnie in a minute on that. But considering where the Jets are going, hey, a very good Detroit team. You've got the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday. If they do make a change at some point in the next week, I would think that maybe the next man up is going to be Declan Chisholm to make his season debut. That being said, it won't be tonight. Samberg and Schmidt, that final pair. Here's a little bit more from Arnie. He spoke today after the morning skate, looking ahead to this Blues game. And before we get to Arnie on the Blues, he was asked if they were able to eliminate the soft plays that Rick Bowness was a little bent about after the loss to Vegas on Thursday night. Here's what Arniel had to say on that.
Yeah, I think we really did. I think obviously the first 10 minutes was a little off, but I thought we got back to it. We had talked a lot about 29 and 97 for Edmonton. They transition like crazy, and if you turn pucks over, if you didn't do hard plays, that they could get going in the opposite direction. And it happened to us against Vegas, a little bit against LA, and you give good players off turnovers or soft plays, you give them space to work, they're gonna make you pay for it usually. So I thought in Edmonton we did a really good job of forcing them to go back and get pucks, make it harder on them, having to play under pressure.
All right, so there's Arnie with his thoughts on how they improved from Thursday to Saturday night. Now, of course, it's Tuesday, a weird start time, 7:45, as we've talked about, part of this 16-game slate in the NHL with staggered starts starting at 5 p.m. our time. And the visitors are the St. Louis Blues. The Blues come in at 2-1-1 on the season. They just finished up a 3-game homestand, a couple wins, a 6-2 loss to the Arizona Coyotes. And the Blues are a team that is looking to make a big comeback from last year after bowing out and missing the playoffs. Here's what Arnie has to say about the visitors tonight and the challenge that St. Louis brings into Canada Life Centre for the Jets.
Yeah, I think they're trying to implement some younger players in their lineup too, but they've lost some key players, Tarasenko and O'Reilly, some of those guys that have been there a while. But at the same time, Craig Brewery's teams are gonna play heavy games. They're gonna make you work for every space, every inch in space out there. So. You're going to have to also play that way. And I thought last year, especially early in the season, I think it was game 6 or 7, they were on a roll, and we got into the game here and we beat them. And just for the fact it was that we played heavy and we played hard, and we did a lot of the right things, and certainly helped us have success. So, like I said, they're going to play a certain way, and we got to make sure that we're ready to go for that style.
All right, so there you have Scott Arniel on the St. Louis Blues. I'm just going to pull up the Blues lineup right now because it's a little different than what we've thought of this team in the past. Of course, Ryan O'Reilly is no longer there, and they're really leaning on the young players that really didn't produce at all last year after signing those monster 8-year extensions. And I'm speaking of Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. They're the offensive catalysts of this club. They both have big spots on the power play. And they're going to be with Brandon Saad on that top line. Shen, Kasperi Kapanen, and Pavel Buchnevich, who I believe is a game-time decision, is the line number 2. And then your old favorite, Kevin Hayes, Remo, back in Winnipeg, playing with Jacob Vrana and Sammy Blais. Vrana was, I think, a pretty key pickup. He's had a nice start, a really talented offensive player that, both in his time in Detroit and Washington, I'm not sure was in a great place personally. It seems like he's in a better spot right now. He's had a nice start to the season. And then Oscar Sundqvist, who I think is a pretty darn good fourth liner with Jake Neighbors. And I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with Alexei Toropchenko, but he's there. And then your defense pairings, Leddy and Parayko, Krug and Falk, Marco Scandella and Tyler Tucker. But the guy that we expect to be in net tonight, who will certainly be hearing it from the fans that are in attendance, is Jordan Binnington, who in a lot of ways has been the emotional leader of the Blues for the last couple seasons. And I'm not sure that's a good thing considering how unhinged he can get.
Yeah, we've seen Jordan Binnington, lose it from time to time, emotionally, but also, from playing. He got so hot in that Stanley Cup final last night. I feel like he hasn't really followed it up. It almost reminds me of like Cam Ward, like a rookie goalie getting hot in the playoffs, and then that's kind of being the peak of his career. I mean, the Blues will certainly take that, but lately, yeah. I agree. He's made more news for like squirting water on people or getting in fights with other teams, and we'll see what Jordan Binnington we get. You mentioned the Blues. Arniel calls them what? They're got some young guys in there, meaning hey, they're rebuilding. They're not projected to make the playoffs. They do have some players. I think the top line is solid. I don't know if the depth is there. I mean, Kevin Hayes certainly helps them out. I think he's already had a tribute video before. I'm not expecting one for him tonight. But she could be an interesting match. What, the Blues got kind of throttled by Arizona the other day. That's their loss on the year, and Arizona's been to a nice start. So we'll see what we get from the Blues here. And yeah, Pavel Buchnevich, game time decisions. That would be big if he's not in the lineup.
Yeah, we'll hear actually from Arnie on Binnington in a minute, but I just hear, as I mentioned, Nate Schmidt coming back into the lineup last game, staying in the lineup tonight. Here's what Arniel had to say about Nate Schmidt getting sat out and then coming back into the Jet Blue Corps.
What I mean is just, he was trying so hard. It seemed like prior to being taken out of the lineup to create stuff, to do things, and it was almost like everything he tried kind of backfired on him. And you know what? Sometimes the reset, like he got, kind of helped him. I thought he was really good in Edmonton. He got back for pucks. He made the first read and made that pass, and he got up in the rush, which he's known for, and just a real solid game. He made two real great breakouts where he got hit pretty hard on them afterwards, and that's part of being a defenseman and going back and sort of taking a hit to make some plays, and he did a real good job. He bounced back, and it was a big factor for us.
So there's Arneal with some complimentary words for Nate Schmidt, who did have a real steady game, and I think just seemed to be a little bit more confident, ironically, after sitting out a game, as Arneal just mentioned. One more from the interim head coach today. We were talking about Jordan Binnington. Binnington has a knack for losing it. Sometimes he can be lights out. That certainly is a big reason why there's a Stanley Cup ring in his closet. But you want to make things difficult for Binnington, and you never know what you're going to get. Here's Arneal on the keys to making it less hospitable for the Blues starting goaltender tonight.
Yeah, the biggest thing is traffic, making sure we're making it hard on them. We're not a real good team offensively. We don't have somebody around the front of that net. We can have our motion and our movement, but bad angle shots with bodies around there, crashing the net. We talked at the start of the year about getting greasy goals, getting ugly goals, and those happen in the blue paint and around that blue paint. We've done a better job of it this year, and any good goaltender sees the puck, he's going to make it hard on you. So, we've got to make sure we get bodies there.
All right, so there's Jets interim head coach Scott Arneal. We'll have more on the club with Mike McIntyre, who was down at Canada Life Center today for the morning skate. He'll join us to tee this one up coming up in around half an hour or so. Stephen Whyno of the AP, though, is going to take us around the National Hockey League, some of the big stories in the league heading into the Frozen Frenzy. But, Remo, before we do that, let's take a quick right to IG Field. And Bombers were back in practice today, and our pal Ted Wyman giving a bit of an update, a very different look to the Bombers' offense at practice, knowing that this game means absolutely nothing to either the Bombers or the Calgary Stampeders. No Zach Collaros, no Nick Dembski, no Jamarcus Hardrick. We knew that Dalton Schoen wouldn't be out there dealing with the ankle injury that has him in a walking boot right now. Drew Richmond in at tackle, Ravi Alston at receiver, and it certainly does look like Drew Brown's going to get another opportunity to show what he can do as a starting quarterback, as the guy that will lead this offense into Calgary on the weekend for the final game of the regular season.
Yeah, not too many surprises there, but for the Bombers, get a nice week off, get healthy, get rested for the Western Final, November 11th, and this is such a weird part of the schedule. Again, like Toronto's been doing this for at least a month straight, and including the game here. So, good for those guys who need the rest and get it. And look, it's all about whoever they play, BC we're expecting, or whoever it may be on November 11 here at IG Field. But they do have 3 games this week, week 21 in the CFL, heading into Calgary. They're at 6-11, and I would think even with Drew Brown, they're still going to be a bit favorite, because Drew Brown, he's looked pretty good. He's kind of playing for contract, or maybe latch on summer for a possible starting job. Not sure what his situation is next year, but he's looked good when he's been in.
Yeah, he certainly has. So we'll obviously be all over the Bombers scenarios going into the weekend. It's all about staying healthy, getting through the final week of the regular season, bye week, and then November 11th, right here in the Peg. Bring it on. The winner of BC and Calgary here in Winnipeg for a trip to the Grey Cup in Hamilton. All right, we're going to go around the league with Stephen Whyno in just a second. Got to give a shout out to David Asplund, who is the latest WSTer that has thrown his hat in the ring to join our Movember team. Of course, Movember, a big month, and we need some guys to step up with us and help us raise some money for men's health, along with our friends at Modern Man Barbershops. Julian was the first up, Derek Schmidt's in, Leighton Janis, and now we've got Dave as well. I think I might be missing someone off the top of my head. But anyways, we do have room for a few more people. So if you're thinking about having a little fun and growing a stash next month, we'll try and get a few incentives for you guys from our friends at Modern Man, and we'll be following the progress all year, all month long. It should be fun getting some of the pictures of the fellas up on Winnipeg Sports Talk on the live stream. Of course, send us an email, by the way. If you're listening on the podcast and you want to join us, we'd love to get a few more folks involved. Winnipeg Sports Talk at gmail.com for that. Let us know and get ready to grow those stashes for the month of Movember. Of course, Modern Man Barbershop, big supporters of Movember and the men's health movement. 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the 2 newest locations on Pembina Highway or Plessis Road. And Modern Man Barbershop's got a variety of grooming services, everything you need, fellas. Haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. You can book your look via modernmanbarber.com and make an appointment for any of the 8 locations. Pool season's over. We might be getting some snow soon, but hey, if you're thinking about a plan or a pool or taking the plunge next year, the experts at Aquatech will help you get on that and be ready for summer. But whole home renovations also start with Aquatech. With thousands of renos as their foundation, Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And yes, that special weather statement continues to get updated. Looks like we're going to be getting snow. It might even stick. It's definitely getting colder. You got to be ready for winter, folks. And that means making sure your battery is going to get your car or truck through the Winnipeg winter. Manitoba Battery is the place to go. A great locally owned business featuring the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, and the best service as well. If you go to manitobabattery.com, check out all the batteries available for you, and Donnie and his gang will deliver it to you for free anywhere in the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. manitobabattery.com. Give them a call at 783-8787. Donnie and his great staff will help you out that way, or pop in and see them in person if you're around at 1026 Logan Avenue. And again, it's manitobabattery.com. And listen, the CC is going to be flowing at IG Field, as we all know, on November 11th. Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk. But for you whiskey lovers, keep your eyes out right now at your local Manitoba liquor marts, because the exclusive Canadian Club Invitation Series is out. The 15-year-old sherry cask is available in a limited one-time release right now, $79.99 at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Again, the entire Canadian Club family is available at MLCC locations. And of course, you can also pick up Canadian Club and ginger ale in cans there and at your local beer store as well. All right, let's get ready for a huge night in the National Hockey League. And it's always great to welcome NHL AP reporter Stephen Whyno to the program. Whyno, what's up, man? It's great to have you back on WST.
Great to talk to you, Hustler.
This is a big one tonight. You've got a great pulse on the league. Give us a bit of an idea about the background of this Super Tuesday with 16 games and the idea behind staggering the games every 15 minutes for the first time ever in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and this is only the second time I think this has happened in the NHL, that all 32 teams have played since the league went to 32 teams, and that was a Saturday in March, April last year. And I think that's ultimately would be the plan, I think, moving forward, of doing one of these on a Saturday in February when there's not a whole lot of other sports going on. But what the NHL and ESPN really wanted to do was sort of an NFL red zone style thing with hockey, and that's what they're getting with the staggered start times. And there's been a lot of complaints over the years from hockey fans watching games on television that every game starts at puck drop, whatever, 7:08 local time, whatever it is, and that every game goes to intermission at the same time. So you don't really have the chance to kind of flip around and watch multiple games. What ESPN really wanted to do in the States was give a chance to whip around like Scott Hansen does on NFL Red Zone. And it's going to be interesting and almost a challenge for producers of figuring out where to go. Obviously, you're going to see every goal of the night and that sort of thing. But power plays, when Connor Bedard's on the ice, when Alex Ovechkin's on the ice against Austin Matthews, and how they kind of flip around and show all these games as they're staggered, starting with Capitals Leafs at 6 o'clock and going to Flyers in Vegas at 11 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, it is. Is it ESPN? Were they sort of the driving force behind this?
Yeah, they were. And the red zone thing is something that NHL Network in the States has also obviously done sort of the NHL Tonight, kind of being able to do live look-ins and such. This is going to be a kind of full whip around of flipping to, as the NFL Red Zone does, where you're going to show every touchdown, that you're going to basically show every goal and kind of see how it works in hockey.
I mean, it does seem like it's a bit of a dry run. And again, on a local level, the only difference is that, well, for instance, we normally go and drop the puck just after 7 o'clock here in the Peg. Today, it's a 7:45 start. And as you mentioned, these 15-minute staggered times. But it will give an opportunity to kind of get the end of each game in. And John Buccigross, who, of course, has been synonymous with hockey, even when ESPN was out of the NHL game, seems like Bucci's going to be sort of at the control. He will be our Scott Hansen, if you will, if you're tuning in that fashion tonight.
Yeah, he's the guy, and along with Kevin Weeks, and so you're going to have the kind of one of the voices of hockey for ESPN for a long time in Buccigross, and obviously a former goalie who's become one of the voices of hockey in the U.S. and Kevin Weeks, and that's it. Really, I am fascinated to see how they handle this, because I remember something that coaches have said for a long time. There's so many shifts in hockey that nothing happens. Right? Like, you have important moments. You never know when the big goal of the game might be, but there's also shifts where nothing happens. So to kind of keep the action going, even when there's 16 games, will be what I'm most interested in watching.
Yeah. And I was just talking with Dustin Nielsen on the Lock Shop about how this was going to work. I mean, listen, unfortunately, McDavid's not playing because he was injured, of course, against the Jets on Saturday night. But you know that if the Oilers on the power play, that's probably getting on the main screen and, some of those other players. But I think the other thing that they probably will definitely try to do is focus, even for a small amount of time, on some teams that don't normally get a lot of coverage on a station like ESPN. And I would imagine a team like Winnipeg going up against, listen, Winnipeg's not getting a lot of nationally televised games in the States. But if some good things happen here in the Peg in that game in between St. Louis and Winnipeg, fans south of the border and those that are watching on the Sportsnet Plus here in Canada might get a chance to see a little bit more of a team like the Jets that might not normally be on their radar.
Right, and to see players like Mark Scheifele who are stars, and to I'm looking at the Adam Fant, it should have been Adam Fantilli against Leo Carlsson, that an Anaheim Columbus sort of game too, that the NHL always talks about wanting to market players and stars more, and it's so tough in a sport where from age you put on skates, you're told that you don't matter more than your teammates and that sort of thing, right? So when you have big markets usually featured in situations like this, you're right. Now you can feature more star players. You can say, okay, we're going to go to this Columbus Anaheim game. We're going to go to the St. Louis Winnipeg game and be able to showcase guys a whole lot of fans don't see a lot of, and that's whether it's in the States, teams like Winnipeg, or in Canada, teams like Columbus and Anaheim, where you're not getting a whole lot of publicity or national television. And if you don't have the center ice package, the kind of national TV to want to watch all these games, you don't get a chance to watch a whole lot of these guys play. And highlight shows are one thing, but to see something happen live, that's why sports are the greatest entertainment on earth, because no two games are ever the same.
Well, and speaking of sports, it is a crazy sports night.
Yes.
Because we've got Game 7 between the Phillies and the D-backs. And it's NBA opening night with two very premier games on it. The timing of this, we've heard some people saying, why the heck are they doing it on a Tuesday? Or do that on a Saturday? Listen, ESPN is behind this, and college football owns Saturdays on ESPN, so that was a non-starter. But do you think that if the product is good, if they get good reaction, this is something, and I think you sort of alluded to this earlier, Stephen, that in future seasons, they might line things up so we can have a Super Saturday or so after the football season, which would be right in the sweet spot of the National Hockey League as they get closer to that push to the playoffs.
Yeah, Hustler, for sure. And I think that one of the ideas was to trial run this in October, early in the year. And I know there's a lot of complaints in the U.S. about having kind of to compete with the NFL and with college football and just kind of the crowded sports schedule. It's great because you got all four sports going at once now. But the ideal situation for something like this would be a Saturday in February, a Sunday in February, March, where there's not a whole lot of other live sports going on. The NFL season's over. College football is not going on. Maybe you've got some college basketball going on, but to have a kind of stage to yourself. And this is a way in some ways to kind of force hockey onto a crowded stage of the NBA has opening night. obviously we don't know if there's going to be a Game 7 in the NLCS, but there is. But to now take this and say, okay, let's experiment with it on Tuesday in October and perfect this and make it something that fans can look forward to. Because I think a lot of fans who weren't aware of this when the schedule came out are now, over the last few days and kind of the media buzz about it, knowing it's happening. And so once you have fans kind of expecting this, that's where, when you have the stage to yourself in the late winter, early spring, it makes a lot more sense.
Stephen Whyno with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Whyno, one of the other big stories that probably didn't have to be one, to be honest, it was probably quite unnecessary, was this ban on the Pride tape. And we saw Travis Dermott being, wearing some of it, not necessarily on his blade, but on his stick, making a bit of a statement is that he is an ally. There was a lot of players that talked a lot about it. He was the only one that actually did it. But now it seems like the NHL has reversed course on this. Give us a little bit of the background on, first of all, why they did it in the first place and why we've seen a 180 on this latest bit of news.
Yeah, this is a controversy that has come up really since Ivan Provorov refused to go into warmups for the Flyers last year when they were wearing the Pride-themed uniforms, and then 5 other players kind of joined him in that. And then the league took a step that I know upset a lot of people, and I understand where their thinking came from of not doing any of the jerseys on the ice because it was taking away from, okay, now you got to watch to see which player's not going to come on the ice and that sort of thing. And it was kind of, it put the spotlight on the wrong things. But to go the extra step further, and initially they were trying not to let players be involved in any of these causes, and not kind of make force players, for lack of a better term, to be part of some of these theme nights that may be against what they want to do or feel obligated to do. And then all of a sudden you came out with the, okay, players can do it off the ice, and then there's no Pride tape on the ice, which didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense from an individual kind of choice standpoint, because as much as this was a ban, what was the league going to do? What was the league going to do to Travis Dermott or to Scott Laughton or to Morgan Rielly or any of these players who wanted to do this? It's not like it is any kind of rule that you can suspend or fine someone for. So it really does feel like common sense prevailed of let players have the option to do this. You're not making Pride tape mandatory. You're not making pink tape for Hockey Fights Cancer mandatory, but you're giving players the option to do what they want and to express their beliefs on the ice. And if players don't want to do that and do their regular stick tape, then that's on them. But this is something that I think the Players Association felt very strongly about, that players want to be able to do these things. Why shouldn't they?
I will admit, and I mean, maybe it's because, I'm here in Winnipeg and we've seen some really, really creative and positive theme nights here. I mean, we've got a massive Filipino community. They did an event last year with an absolutely awesome warm-up jersey. They did the same thing for the South Asian community. And I mean, they've done it for Pride Night a number of years and nobody said a damn thing about it. I mean, it's not like they just started Pride Nights last year in the National Hockey League and all of a sudden it was an issue. Why do you think this happened last year? Is this just a sign of the times as to how extreme certain sides are getting on both, and it ended up being more problematic in 2023 than it had in the previous 10 years when these games were being celebrated throughout the league year after year after year?
Yeah, I think it was a perfect storm of events, actually, that all of a sudden you have a war in Ukraine where Russian players have either feel like feel like the pressure is on them to act in a certain way, and you have that, and Ivan Provorov, who would not wear that Pride jersey. It was the first time the Flyers had worn a Pride jersey in warmups, and I know a lot of teams had done Pride nights without the jerseys being worn, like they would auction off the jerseys, all these sort of things, but they wouldn't actually wear them on the ice. So you have the idea of the Flyers kind of opening of floodgates on, okay, Ivan Provorov says he's not going to do it. And then the New York Rangers, who are originally going to wear Pride jerseys, decide not to. The Minnesota Wild, who originally decided not to. And players felt empowered, whether it was the Stalls, James Reimer, a handful of other Russian players, to not wear it. And so it became more of a story that they weren't wearing it. And that's where the league comes in and says, okay, well, we don't want this to be a headline every time someone doesn't wear a uniform. And when this Pride tape ban first happened, most people I've talked to around hockey didn't understand why it happened. the one positive would have been, okay, now you get to watch and see which guys actually defy the ban. We got to see Travis Dermott do it in a game. You get to see maybe Scott Lawton do it on Flyers Pride Night. But it almost brought enough awareness. And Trevor Van Riemsdyk of the Capitals, I asked him about this last week or a week and a half ago, and he said maybe this is going to spur guys to do more things off the ice. Maybe it's going to cause them to be louder on social media, to make their voices heard louder with this. And now that players are allowed to do it, I think you're going to see more players doing it outside of just Pride Nights and kind of bringing more attention to it during Pride Nights.
I will agree. I will agree with you that by banning it, it made it far more of a big deal and way more people were talking about it. If nothing had ever happened and you had a few guys that were putting it on, I think it would have been a blip. So anyways, I still do hope that they can find some common ground, because I thought it was a little cowardly, frankly, by the league just to cancel everything. Because there had been so much good done by so many of these. And, and listen, if teams or players had some issues with one particular night, I would have loved it to be handled on a case-by-case basis. But again, there was a lot of blowback for players that, for whatever reason had their reasons for not doing it. But it was interesting that, a number of those players last year that were involved in this conversation had already been doing it years before. And it was just weird how all of a sudden now this was a big issue that wasn't an issue in the past.
Yeah, and the league, and this is such a hockey, and I'm going to say lowercase c conservative of how the league acts in situations like this, of they're allergic to controversy. They don't want anything that stands in the way of the actual sport and kind of something that, as Gary Bettman said, has been a distraction in a negative way that took away from, as you said, a lot of the good things that have happened in the community. And it's like, how do you toe the line of what is going to be not causing it to be a negative headline, but also welcoming people into the sport? Because at the end of the day, the whole thing about this Pride tape has been that members of the LGBTQ plus community want to feel welcome in hockey, and hockey should be wanting to welcome in everyone. And that is one of the things that made specifically the ban on Pride tape such an unpopular decision among players. Brian Burke pointed out that it was a surprising and unsettling setback, that it really made it look like hockey really isn't for everyone. And so this brings the issue at least full circle. And one of the things I remember folks pointing out last year is it does show how much society has evolved, that players not wanting to wear this, and 99% of players in the league wanting to wear these jerseys, kind of showed the evolution of how far this sport had gotten. But that progress is not a straight line. And with something like this, it's the league and the players and everybody involved kind of finding their level of what can we do to be as supportive as possible and be as welcoming and inclusive as possible. And you hope that in years coming that the Pride jerseys come back, the Hockey Fights Cancer jerseys come back, the Military Appreciation jerseys, all of these things, that even the St. Patrick's Day jerseys, all of these, that eventually these gets phased back in as you start kind of going through the ebbs and flows of this argument, for lack of a better word.
No doubt. Whyno, there's been a lot of talk about the draft coming up, and we haven't confirmed where it's going to be next year. There's been a lot of speculation, even back to Nashville, that it was going to be in Las Vegas. But now we're hearing they're talking about a decentralized draft. First of all, what does that mean, and why are they considering it? Because honestly, as someone, and I know you've been there year after year after year, the draft every year is really the true convention of the National Hockey League, with your executives, your scouts, the new players coming into the leagues, agents. There's so much that goes on at that. Why are they even considering going away from that, and what would it look like if it does?
Well, it's about cost more than anything else. And it has seemed like Vegas has been the target for next year's draft. But then you've got a UFC event happening at T-Mobile Arena and so many other things happening around Vegas, to where what's the location, maybe the minor league rink where the Henderson Silver Knights of the American Hockey League play, of trying to figure out where is the best place to have something like this. But the decentralizing is similar to what the NBA and NFL do, where you have prospects, a certain amount of prospects and league officials in one place, and then you have all the teams kind of staying at home and working the phones, doing that stuff instead of being on the draft floor. And I hate the idea. I hate the idea of a decentralized draft. I'm with you. I think it's a convention that I would rather the league go the other way, like our colleague Pierre LeBrun has been suggesting for years, of move free agency up to the end of June ahead of Canada Day and have everybody there, have all the top free agents. Imagine Steven Stamkos next year if he's a free agent and he's there getting wooed by teams in Las Vegas and taken to Haleo for dinner or whatever it is, and just kind of what the spectacle of that might be to have free agent announcements happening, guys putting on jerseys for the first time. The decentralizing of the draft goes the other way of teams staying home. And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of agreement from NHL teams on this, but I sure hope it gets voted down.
What do you have a sense of where it's going? I mean, I immediately thought too. I mean, this I guess does come down to cost, but I mean, you can save some money, but I think you're also missing out on, I mean, everything from the media opportunities. And I think the NHL has done a very good job. Anyone that's been to one of the drafts in the last 10 years, I mean, it is a big, big event for the city. It's huge for the teams. It's huge for the players. And I get there would be significant cost savings, but I do wonder what the other side of that would be for what the NHL has been building for a long time come around the draft.
Yeah, and it's this philosophical shift of whether you go to a decentralized draft or even maybe you go back to holding it in Montreal every year. Like that draft in Montreal was spectacular, where everybody, including the fans, were into it. Nashville, not as great of a kind of a crowd among fans, still a great spectacle. But how do you mix the let's have this be an exciting fan event? And also things happen. Like there were no major trades happening during the first round of the draft in Nashville. It was rather, from outside of the drafting players' perspective, a very boring, uneventful draft. And I think this is where it came from, is you're saving money, but also it's so loud on the draft floor that you have to text message and all of this to get deals done anyway. And if GMs and teams think it's more productive to get things done at home, that's where it's at. It just makes it a whole heck of a lot less exciting.
Stephen Whyno's with us. Whyno, before we go, there's been some big signings at the beginning of the season, maybe none bigger than the Thanksgiving Day bomb that Kevin Cheveldayoff dropped here with Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck signing identical 7-year extensions. What was your reaction to that? And now that, we're a couple, weeks removed from it, what do you think that does for the Winnipeg Jets and the message that it sends both within the market here and elsewhere that top players like that would stay taking the exact same amount of money to do it?
Yeah, it's a reversal from everything we expected, especially when Blake Wheeler was bought out. Like I thought at that point, this was Kevin Cheveldayoff and the organization going into we need not a rebuild, but a resetting of what this locker room looks like. And obviously kind of the locker room lack of chemistry over the years has been a big storyline around the Jets. To know that Mark Scheifele is part of this leadership group moving forward, and to know that Connor Hellebuyck is going to be backstopping this team moving forward, shows that they're still in the mix and in a central division that is very unpredictable. We don't know what the Blues are going to look like. Beyond the Avalanche and the Stars, we don't know who the playoff teams in this division are. That it says, look, this is a team that's going to try to win, and Lord knows the league needs that building to be full every night at 16,000 just to be able to kind of support a team in that market. And to have Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck around, along with Nikolai Ehlers and Josh Morrissey and the rest of that core, it means they're going to be in a mix for a playoff spot for years to come.
Well, we'll look forward to this one tonight. Jets and Blues coming up at 7:45. Go get your 16-game parlay ready to go for tonight, and we'll do this again soon. Thanks for jumping on as always, Whyno. Great to talk to you.
Enjoy the frenzy. Talk to you later.
Good stuff. There's Stephen Whyno. Give him a follow on Twitter at @SWhyno, and you can continue to read his work for the AP in publications all around North America. We're going to focus back in on the Jets with Mike McIntyre coming up in just a minute. Don't forget tonight, 7:45, puck drop for the Jets and Blues. And then the Jets are back at it after a couple games on the road next Monday, which I'm sure will have a Halloween theme, against Blake Wheeler and the New York Rangers. Of course, you can get tickets at winnipegjets.com. Also, I know there's been a lot of talk about folks that have maybe had tickets lapse. If you are thinking about a ticket package, get in touch with the Jets. I know they've got smaller packages as well. And would always love to get people in some more seats to try and get this building back to where they and the team needs it to be. Let me give a big shout out to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market. If you're looking for great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, get them down to one of 6 Vita Health Fresh Market stores or online at myvita.ca. Fully shoppable website. fully shoppable website. And when you order online, you can get same-day local delivery if you order by 11 a.m. And right now, get a free gift from Vita Health for any online order of $100 or more at myvita.ca. And hey, if you're stressed these days, get on down and try Health First Ashwagandha Supreme, known for its stress-lowering effects, including mental stress, anxiety, cortisol levels, and even stress-related food cravings. It's on sale all month at Vita Health, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Of course, Wallace & Wallace are the fencing experts in town. You know that. Seen their fences and trucks all over the city. But did you know they're also the leaders in overhead garage doors? And that overhead garage door of yours had lots of ups and downs this summer, getting you and your family to all that summer fun. But it's about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts way more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Give Wallace & Wallace a call to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today. For residential and commercial overhead door sales and service, there's only one name or two you need to know, and that's Wallace & Wallace. And hey, guys, snow's coming. The holidays, if you can believe it, are just around the corner. How's the closet looking? If you are looking in and realize you might need to step up your menswear game, there's only one place to go in Winnipeg, and that, of course, is F Apparel down at 190 Smith Street. They've got custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. And hey, if you are getting married or in a wedding party coming up, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount for the entire wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. Pop down and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown, or find out more online or make an appointment at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right, let's welcome in our pal Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press as we get ready for the 7:45 puck drop. Mike, what's going on? How are you?
Doing really well, us, and fingers crossed with the 7:45 puck drop. What we don't want to happen tonight is overtime or a shootout, because traditional newspaper deadlines with a 7:45 p.m. start. Let's just say that I will be hammering out my copy right up to the final buzzer, and I'm hoping the final buzzer is just a shade past 10 and not a moment later. Naturally, though, that means there probably is going to be overtime, and not only a shootout, probably like a 16-round special that goes for 20 minutes or so and has me wanting to hurl my computer from my press box perch. You can almost bank on that happening. It's usually the McIntyre way, I find.
Well, normally I would say bring on the free hockey.
Yes.
But this is a big Central Division matchup, and regulation wins are
Clean wins,
key.
yeah.
So I guess I'll begrudgingly go along with your request tonight for this game. Hey, listen, before we talk about the game and the Jets and everything, I mean, the big story around Winnipeg since the announcement yesterday morning is the leave of absence for Rick Bowness. I mean, you've been down there the last couple of days, Mike. I mean, just fill us in a little bit on, how this has affected the team, what you've heard from people, and, the fact that, Rick Bowness, their leader, won't be around for the foreseeable future, but the team in very capable hands with Scott Arniel.
Yeah, and, Rick Bowness is the one who frequently refers to the Jets as a family, right? He talks about that in many ways. He talks, when something happens on the ice, the whole, you come at one of us, you come at all of us. And that's kind of been one of Rick Bowness's favorite sayings in the year and a bit that he's been around the Jets here. But also, and I got a sense of this, I wrote a piece a few weeks ago in Training Camp Huss, where I talked to a bunch of Jets players just about that family atmosphere that Rick Bowness creates. And what I heard from the players, it's not just Rick Bowness, it's Judy Bowness as well. Bunch of players told me, Dylan DeMello, Morgan Barron, how Judy Bowness, she goes out of her way too to make players feel welcome. Things like, sending birthday greetings when it's their special day, asking about their families and, children's, when kids are born and milestones with the kids, that sort of thing. And so you really get the sense that it's kind of the bonus way. And in fact, I remember talking to Tyler Seguin in Dallas last season, our first visit into Dallas after Rick Bowness had been hired. And Tyler Seguin referred to Rick Bowness as a father-like figure to him, but again, mentioned Judy Bowness and how, nurturing and loving and caring she is. So, I think what we've seen here in the last day and a half, certainly there was some shock yesterday morning down at practice with news that Judy had suffered a seizure on Sunday night and was hospitalized and undergoing further testing, because it really does feel to the Jets players, the organization, like it's a family member who is not in a good way right now. So, there's obviously a lot of concern, but I also get a sense that there's a real feeling of, well, let's go out and kind of be our best. Let's let Rick Bowness worry about, Judy and his family. Let's go out and show him our love and support in the way that we can, which is to play some good hockey. So, almost a rallying point of sorts for the Jets is kind of what I'm hearing. We'll see how they come out tonight, but for sure, Huss, it's very much front and center on everyone's minds with the organization. Of course, the Jets did get a bit of a taste of not having their coach behind the bench at the very beginning of last season when Rick himself was stricken with COVID and actually had some pretty significant symptoms at the time. And so, they've had a scenario like this where Scott Arniel is leading things behind the bench. They are for sure in good hands, but certainly a lot of concern around the team and, just echoing what so many have said, obviously hoping and wishing for the best here for Judy and Rick and their whole family.
Mike, I know the Jets, and listen, you were respecting the family and, this situation. We heard from Scott Arniel earlier today on the program saying that, it's serious and, everyone, first and foremost, just hoping for a full and speedy recovery. Do you have any concept of how long they might be preparing to be without their head coach?
Yeah, I think, they're obviously with testing that's going on, which may determine kind of what exactly they're looking at here. I can say we didn't ask today kind of as a follow-up to yesterday for any timeline. The Jets, they're actually not skating tomorrow, Huss. They're going to fly out tomorrow morning to Detroit ahead of that 2-game road trip. I would not expect Rick Bowness will be at either of these 2 road games. Then they come back, of course, for the 1 game, the Blake Wheeler game next Monday. And then it's back on the road for 3 more and a West Coast trip. Obviously the best scenario would be that everything is quickly okay. And that would be ideal. I just don't know that that's going to be the case. And I don't know that the team has any real sense of whether we're talking, a game or 2 or 3 or something beyond that. We may get more of an update here in the coming days and we'll see what happens. I am wondering if the Jets at some point, and we didn't see anyone on the ice today from the Moose organization, but I do wonder if there's potentially they would look to bring a Moose coach up. If the feeling that this is going to be more than just maybe a game or 2, we might see a scenario where they just want an extra set of eyes, and to take some of those other duties because Scott Arniel now obviously has to focus on some other things than he normally would as an associate coach. So we'll see if, the Moose, I think they're flying out tomorrow to Texas while the Jets head east. So could we see, a Moose coach promoted here to kind of fill that temporary spot behind the bench? I wouldn't rule that out, but we'll see what the coming days deliver.
Mike, looking ahead to these few games, and hopefully it's just a few games that Rick's away from the club, I'm wondering if anything really changes. Listen, Scott Arniel did a good job last year, and they got a bunch of positive results while Bones was away.
Yeah.
But he's now the interim coach. He'll have the final say. He'll be, making the lines. Listen, we saw a significant line switch up early in the Edmonton game Mason Apple didn't have a great start, lost Darnell Nurse. And then later on in the game, took a penalty that you just cannot take against the Edmonton Oilers 200 feet away from your net. And Alex Iafallo moved up. I mean, do you think they sort of roll with that status quo, or will Arnie have full reign to make decisions as he sees fit to, bottom line, try and win hockey games?
Yeah, one thing that could be a little different this time as opposed to a year or so ago when Rick Bowness was sidelined with COVID, one thing we heard then, Huss, is Rick Bowness was still very active in communicating. That was, of course, the start of the season. Yeah. I mean, Rick Bowness kind of had this grand vision, and he wasn't there on opening night to kind of oversee it. But he was very much kind of, even though Scott Arniel was at the helm, I think Rick Bowness, in a way, he was kind of coaching from home, right? We heard that they were bringing him in on video sessions. I mean, he wasn't in a way that he couldn't still participate in what was happening. I don't know if that's the case this time around. And I would think, Huss, if you're the Jets, I mean, I'm sure they've told Rick, look, don't worry at all about the hockey team here. Just focus on Judy and the rest of the family. So I don't know if Rick Bowness is going to be, having the same level of communication that he did a year ago when he was laid up with COVID. That being said, you're right. We saw some in-game changes the other day. The Jets are going to stick with those changes into tonight's game with Alex Iafallo specifically on that top line. Obviously, they got a good result the other night, so not surprising that they're going to stick with kind of how they finished the game as opposed to how they ended it, how they started it. But you do wonder if, let's just say, the Jets don't have a really good performance tonight, and personnel decisions. They don't have a lot of options because of the roster they have. Dominic Toninato is the only extra forward just up from the Moose. Logan Stanley, of course, came in for that one game for Nate Schmidt. Nate Schmidt went back in. And it was interesting. Scott Arniel actually talked today about Nate Schmidt and why he thought Nate Schmidt was really struggling early in the year and how he felt like a reset was maybe the best thing for him. And he saw a lot better version of Nate Schmidt against the Oilers the other night. Did they try and get Declan Chisholm in a game here? I have to think that they would like to sooner than later. And, nobody wants to hope for injuries. Certainly the Jets aren't hoping any of their blue liners get injured. If they continue to be healthy, do they look for a spot to get Declan Chisholm in a game? I suspect that if there was going to be a move at some point, a roster shuffle, it might be Chisholm coming in for one game, and it would probably be Nate Schmidt going out. But obviously they hope that Nate Schmidt, can string together some strong performances and make that a really difficult decision to potentially take him out of the lineup. I think Scott Arniel may have a little more power than maybe a year ago just because of circumstances. Ideally, though, if you're the Jets, you're hoping for good health and good play. And if you get those two things, Huss, you pretty much just keep rolling the lineup as is, right?
I'm, and I don't know whether you would have an answer to this. Of the relationship between Rick and Arnie and how they work together. I mean, I think back to the old Moose days when Carlisle was the head coach and Arnie was the assistant. And I mean, it literally was a good cop, bad cop operation. Right. I mean, Carlisle was this crusty hard ass that, God love him, would get all over guys. And then Arnie really seemed to be the guy behind the scenes that would be one-on-one with players, sort of lifting them up. And, it created a pretty effective unit. I mean, I think Rick Bowness, from everything that we see, at least on the outside, is far from Carlisle.
He's a good cop too, Huss.
Well, he is too. And I just wonder what the relationship and how those guys work together. And, if Arnie kind of has to change a little bit as the head guy, as opposed to his daily role. Although as an associate coach, I think it's very clear, although we don't see Scott a lot out in front of the media, that's kind of Rick's job. He's very, very intricately involved in decisions, planning, and everything that goes into the coaching gig in the NHL.
Well, he is. And, watching practice on a regular basis, Scott Arniel, yesterday's practice, Huss, wasn't a whole lot different than a normal practice without Rick Bowness, because Scott Arniel normally is very involved in the practice planning and the execution of various drills. In fact, that's one thing Rick Bowness does a lot. He delegates a lot when it comes to practice. Like Brad Lauer will have certain drills that he will explain, as he did yesterday, and lay out. Marty Johnson, same thing. So, Rick Bowness, I will say this, he runs the team like a democracy. So I think there's a lot of input already from all the coaches. And as you say, Scott Arniel carrying that associate label, some people may wonder, well, what's the difference? What's an assistant versus an associate? Not every team has an associate coach. An associate indicates that there's a little more power, a little more responsibility. And that was part of the plan here. I mean, I think a lot of people thought when the Jets put this coaching staff in place that Scott Arniel was the next coach in waiting. Rick Bowness, who, he admitted himself, he thought he was probably retiring after, leaving the Dallas organization. We know Huss, we don't have to revisit history. He wasn't the original choice. The Jets offered the job to Barry Trotz. Barry ended up turning them down and obviously took a GM position in Nashville. But, I think for Rick Bowness, look, he's not going to do this forever. And so I think part of the mindset here was to bring Scott Arniel in, have him work extremely closely with Rick Bowness so that you could almost have that seamless transition maybe after a couple seasons. And so that's what may end up happening, right? Rick Bowness, I think there's an option after this year, but we don't know exactly what the future holds for his coaching career beyond this season. And so I think for that reason, this is pretty seamless because Scott Arniel is already involved in a lot more than maybe your traditional, second in command on a coaching staff would be. And I do think, to your original point or question, Huss, they're kind of cut from the same cloth. Personality-wise, I think they're very similar. It isn't like the good cop, bad cop. Look, Rick Bowness admits he can be a bad cop at times, but he does it in a way that absolutely has the respect of his players, even when he gets on them. And I think Scott Arniel would be the same way. Like Scott Arniel, he can be hard when he has to, but I think he does it in a respectful way that players appreciate, kind of his honesty and his candor. And in that sense, Rick Bowness, Scott Arniel are very much cut from the same cloth. Yeah,
and just, one more thing on the coaching situation. You just mentioned it. Rick was potentially retiring. He signed a 2-year deal. There's a potential he could stay on longer. But when you consider what Arnie did at the beginning of last year and this opportunity for him right here, long-term thinking of a successor to Rick Bowness, I think there's also really an opportunity for Arnie to prove, particularly within that team, that he can be a guy that can, help lead them to the goals that they're putting out night in and night out, and most importantly, wins. And, for his potential, if he was going to be a successor, I would suggest that both what happened last year was a positive, and there's another big opportunity for Arnie to kind of show that he could be the next guy for the Winnipeg Jets if and when Bones moves on.
Yeah, we talk all the time about opportunities for players, whether it means moving up the lineup. A guy like Mason Appleton had a big opportunity, and one would say he probably didn't, I'm sure he would say he didn't do exactly what he had hoped to do with that opportunity. Alex Iafallo now gets a big opportunity. So we talk about opportunities with players. We don't very often talk about opportunities for coaches. And a lot of that is because, game to game, the coaching staff is pretty static, right, over the course of a year. But you're right, this would be an opportunity. And I know Scott Arniel certainly wouldn't be looking at it like this. He certainly wouldn't be talking about it like this. But the fact of the matter is, this is a chance to kind of see what he can do. Just as they got a little bit of that last year, well, they're going to get another little bit of it this year to see, what things look like when he's in charge. And there's a lot of responsibilities, Huss. That includes meeting with us ink-stained wretches every single day. And, so there was Scott Arniel yesterday after practice. This morning, he'll meet with us again after the game tonight. That's all part of the duties. He'll hold down media on the road this week. So it's an opportunity for everybody to kind of see what it looks like with him in charge, and for the players to kind of see him in maybe a bit different light as well. And sure, I mean, that's a good thing, right? And I'm sure Scott Arniel would love to make the most of this opportunity, because ultimately it would translate to good things for the team and the organization as a whole, which is his number one priority, no question.
Let's get to tonight's game, and I guess tie it into the big comeback win in Edmonton on Saturday night. We kind of talked about the flip of Appleton and Iafallo, which certainly bore some nice results, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they look tonight. What do you make of Cole Perfetti's situation coming into this game? I mean, Cole was stapled to the bench for the second half of the third period and in overtime in a game that was a 2-2 game. Why do you think that happened, and where is he at going into this game, Mike?
Yeah, I think these are the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs of a young player who still, I'm sure, has a little bit of work to do to earn the trust of the coaching staff in pivotal situations late in games. I think what we saw the other night, Huss, again, there was quite a bit of special teams play, but then we also saw Rick Bowness, shorten his bench a little bit, and Cole Perfetti obviously was one of the unfortunate recipients, I guess, of that shortened bench. I know, and it's the social media world we live in, like people want to make mountains out of molehills, I think, a lot of times when it comes to personnel decisions. Does it mean the Jets are sour on Cole Perfetti? Does it mean the Jets have given up on Cole? Of course not. But I think they're being careful with how they deploy him. And you can certainly debate the merits of that. I mean, maybe the points haven't been there yet. Certainly there's some underlying numbers to suggest Cole Perfetti has been perfectly fine, a safe, responsible player. He's not, making egregious giveaways or glaring mistakes that.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike. Was he making soft plays? Because we heard a lot of that coming out of the Vegas game, and I'm not sure it was a coincidence that in crunch time that decision was made.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could point a finger at a number of culprits for soft plays. And, look, I think Nikolai Ehlers would be another guy on that list, Huss, of guys who have to make some harder plays at times. And I think the Jets are still waiting for Nikolai Ehlers to kind of really emerge here early in the season. And, look, Cole Perfetti, Nikolai Ehlers, they both share something in common besides the fact they're on the second line. Those guys missed a bit of time as well in the preseason. And maybe that's caught up to them a little bit. They also, there was the grand plan to have them part of this new line with Nino Niederreiter. Well, that line never got a single second of ice time together in the preseason. Now Nino Niederreiter is not even on that line anymore. He's down on a third line with Adam Lowry. And they've moved Vlad Nemestikov. And the reason they've moved Vlad Nemestikov up, Huss, is to try and get Nikolai Ehlers going.
I agree.
So, and again, it hasn't been a large body of work, but it hasn't really happened yet. I think when you look at the composition of Winnipeg's lines right now, that second line, and part of it is Cole Perfetti, part of it is Nikolai Ehlers, part of it is having a guy in Nemestikov who's been bumped up now to try and kind of be the jumper cables, if you will. So that's a line that's probably going to get the short shrift when push comes to shove in a close game. But again, I think it's just part of a bigger picture here. These are guys that, didn't get the reps in the preseason. They're still probably trying to find their game early. And it's, Cole Perfetti, again, these are the ups and downs. I still think back to, in terms of Rick Bowness and, being in Dallas last year, talking to players, and including Jason Robertson, who kind of looked back with a bit of a smirk and a laugh about the tough love that Rick Bowness gave him in his rookie season, his first full season in the NHL. And Jason Robertson, who's turned into one of the best, offensive players in the league. He actually said, looking back, I'm thankful that Rick Bowness handled me and my situation the way it was. I may have not have thought it at the time, but I had some maturing to do and some growing to do in my game. And so I think we're going to see a little bit of that with Cole Perfetti here. Again, it doesn't mean the Jets have given up on Cole Perfetti. Doesn't mean they're down on him. It's just part of life, as you navigate the difficult waters at times of the NHL.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think after, something like that, Scott Arniel, I'm sure, was a guy that would be, working with Cole, would be very much in communication with him. And, I saw
them having that, just to your point, I actually saw Scott Arniel yesterday at practice. He was standing with Cole Perfetti for a good chunk of time, just the two of them. There was a lot of that happening yesterday, a one-on-one talk. And, I can't read lips from the distance I was at, but I'm sure a lot of that was being discussed, Huss, for sure.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, I think Perfetti at times, been snake bit a little bit, had a big goal against Vegas, and you could see the relief that he had in scoring. They've got to get more out of that line. But I will say this. Nemetsnikov, and we could say the same thing about Iafallo, when Arnie kind of referred to that earlier on as being a bit of a Swiss Army knife, if you will, and being able to play in a number of different spots. It speaks to the improved depth on this club coming out of that trade in particular. And we've talked a lot about Kupari. We've talked a lot about Iafallo, who's going to be on that top line. But Vlad Nemetsnikov he's just been great since he's become a Winnipeg Jet. And I'm not sure a lot of people gave much thought to when they re-signed him and where he'd fit in. But if he can be a catalyst in getting Nikolai Ehlers going, that'll even be another feather in his cap right now, because as we've seen, he has been a difference maker, and he has gotten involved in a number of different aspects of this club so far. And I'll tell you what, he really seems to be money well spent right from the day that he got here.
I know you had no idea of this when you just mentioned it, but this is a time for me to sneak in a shameless plug. I actually had a lengthy sit down in the room this morning with Vlad Nemetsnikov, just a one-on-one. And I'm going to be, the Jets are not skating tomorrow as they fly east. So I kind of put that one in the bank. I'm going to write it up tomorrow for Thursday's Free Press, and it'll be online tomorrow. But had a great conversation with Vlad Nemetsnikov. There's a lot of really interesting things about this player. Did you know, Haas? I didn't until very recently. Slava Kozlov is his uncle. One of the great Russians on the Red Wings. And so Vlad Nemetsnikov, who kind of grew up in Detroit, he considers Michigan home. He's looking forward to Thursday's game there. But he grew up watching the Russian Five, one of whom was his uncle, which is really interesting. Slava Kozlov is the brother of Vlad Nemetsnikov's mother. And they still talk, actually. He was telling me today, Slava Kozlov lives in Spain in the summer and then is coaching a KHL team right now. And so him and Vlad still have a conversation every now and then. Vlad Nemetsnikov's own father actually briefly played in the NHL as well. He's a really interesting guy, and I agree with you 100%. Money well spent. The kind of player, quite frankly, good teams need to be great teams. Guys you can move up and down the lineup, can play a number of different positions, can be on your power play, he can kill penalties. And so I think, the Jets, and Scott Arniel mentioned this today, I kind of forgot all the connections they have with him. Rick Bowness previously coached him in
Tampa.
Scott Arniel previously had him, and I'm trying to remember now because Vlad's been said about 8 different teams. But both Scott Arniel and Brad Lauer also had previously had affiliation with Vlad Nemetsnikov. So I suspect when Kevin Cheveldayoff came to the coaching staff prior to free agency this year and said, Vlad Nemetsnikov, what do we think? All of their hands would have went up immediately and said, yeah, we want him back. And the Jets made it a priority, and I think it was a shrewd signing. They didn't have to break the bank for it, but they're getting great value, no question about it.
Well, and listen, we mentioned Iafallo, who's going to get that opportunity on the top line. I honestly think it's just a matter of time before we see Rasmus Kupari probably play up in the lineup. I don't want to say he's been a revelation, but there was a lot of people that didn't know much about him, and he stands out night in and night out. And I mean, that fourth line, I was at the game in Edmonton, Mike, and as I say, I was talking about this earlier today on the program, and I wasn't looking at any of the, the natural stat trick of the lines, but just from the eye test, that line looked about as good as it had in a long time, not only spending time in the offensive zone. I think David Gustafsson has come in and really made the most of his opportunity right now. And I think we know Morgan Barron's capable of playing a third line role or higher up in the lineup. I mean, that fourth line, I think the coaching staff right now, whether it's Bones or whether it's Arning on the bench, has just a different level of confidence in playing all four lines. And that's a great thing for the hockey club.
Yeah, it sure is. And by the way, when you speak of Rasmus Kupari, you mean the fastest man in the NHL? Us? I don't know if folks saw this.
The Flash.
The Flash, yes. The NHL released yesterday some new tracking data that they're collecting. And one of the things that they chart is the speed that players are traveling when they're on the ice. They now have the technology for it. And I think a lot of folks were surprised when the data came out yesterday. There it is. Remis on the ball as always. Speaking of fast, Remis he's got the quickest hands in the land. No question about it. But yeah, Rasmus Kupari, not Connor McDavid. Rasmus Kupari can lay claim to, now it's early, small sample size, but he's nobody's moved quicker on the ice than Rasmus Kupari. He keeps this up, he might get invited to the All-Star game in the fastest skater competition. If he keeps moving at this speed. But you're right, he's been a revelation, and I think fans are seeing why he was more than just a throw-in in the PL Dubois trade. The Jets, they wanted Rasmus Kupari. They had, I think, a vision of what this player could be. They had obviously scouted him quite heavily, and now he's being given an opportunity. And, again, in the role that he's playing, his offensive numbers, I don't think anyone's concerned about, how many goals he scores or assists, but what he's doing on the ice, how effective he is when he's out there, specifically as a deterrent to the other team, making life difficult for them in that fourth line role. You can't ask for much more from your fourth line. And, obviously with David Gustafsson now going in, as a domino effect of the Velarde injury, the fourth line looks slightly different than it did to start the year when Nemestikov was down there. But I think even in its current incarnation, there is absolute trust in what that fourth line looks like. And to your earlier question about Cole Perfetti, that line didn't get its ice time nicked. I mean, they were still out there in the final minutes of the third period in a tie game. We can look back at a lot of previous Jets teams, especially under Paul Maurice. How often would you see the fourth line out late in a tie game? The answer was very rarely, if ever. And it's why we often saw fourth liners on this team, in the 5, 6, 7 minute mark. You're now routinely seeing everybody in double digits, which is a great thing. It keeps everyone a little sharper, a little healthier. And, that can't be anything but a benefit. Yeah,
no doubt about that. Mike, listen, Connor was amazing after giving up those first two goals. And, he certainly was sort of the star of the show. All of those players contributed on the PK. And listen, I mean, the Jets would like to have spent less time in the box on Saturday night. But after that first 5 minutes, they were able to weather it. All of those players had a big impact in that. Certainly Connor Hellebuyck was number one. But I thought it was a real step forward for the Jet blue line. And, Arneil talked about Nate Schmidt, who came back and kind of looked more confident than he was before, which is somewhat ironic after you've just been sat out as a healthy scratch. But I wanted to ask you about Josh Morrissey. And, he had, of course, the big breakout season last year where he was a Norris candidate and, really just raised his level of play. If anybody thought that from Josh was a career year and a one-year wonder, He's certainly showing right now that he's basically picked up right where he left off. And that might have been his best game of the year, especially. And we can talk about, being in and ending up in the highlights on the OT winner, but it's what he's doing in his own end. And I mean, there's no bigger challenge than 29 and 97 when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. And Arniel talked about it, but just wanted to get your thoughts on the start to the season for Josh Morrissey, who really seemed to pick up right where he left off last year.
Well, he has. And, you look at offensively, I'm just taking a peek right now at NHL.com. Jacob Slavin, that is the only defenseman in the NHL right now, Huss, with more points than Josh Morrissey. Morrissey's tied with a number of players with his 6 points in 5 university players. Carr, Victor Hedman, Shea Theodore, Rasmus Dahlin, Jake Sanderson. That's who Morrissey is tied with right now. That's pretty elite company. And, Josh Morrissey, looking at his time on ice, 24-38 a game, like that is up there with the heavyweights. I think it's just looking here. Yeah, it's top 10 in the league. So, they're playing them in all situations. And why wouldn't you? You've got an all-star. You've got a Norris candidate, a bona fide number 1 in Josh Morrissey, who is starting this season kind of picking up where he left off. And, I think all that talk in the summer and at training camp where he spoke of believing he had more to give, had another gear, some may have chalked that up to, well, of course, what else is he going to say? I'm going downhill from here. It can't, I can't be anything but worse than I was last year. Well, no, of course he's going to say that he believes he can be even better, but he's backing up that talk with some outstanding play. And yeah, I think the blue line, Huss, as a whole, you could pick apart at certain points in games early this year where there's been some poor puck management, some questionable reads. I think you can just chalk that up to, you could probably go up and down the list of virtually every team in the league, maybe except Vegas and a couple others, and find all kinds of examples. That's going to happen early in the season, right? Hockey is a game of mistakes, and you probably get more of them made early in the year when you're still kind of getting your footing. But we've seen Josh Morrissey really embrace the role, the leadership role, the on-ice role that he has. And he certainly looks like he's poised to have another outstanding season and perhaps appear on some Norris ballots again when all is said and done.
Well, I think he's got a better chance this year. It won't be maybe a surprise to a lot of people outside of the market. Right. Sometimes you got to get on the radar first and then push forward into a legitimate contender. Hey, just before we go, we're going to be playing, we didn't have enough time for this yesterday because the show was so packed coming out of the weekend. We're going to be playing a few clips from Connor Hellebuyck's after hours visit. Yeah. How good was that from your perspective?
Oh, it was tremendous. And first of all, I'm a huge fan of what Scott Oake does. Scott Oake's one of the best in the business at getting players to kind of open up, let their hair down a little bit. And I think we saw that. Connor Hellebuyck, he can be a bit of a difficult nut to crack at times, right? He's a goalie. He's weird. All goalies are weird. But no question, Huss, he got Connor Hellebuyck in a pretty good mood the other night after a huge road victory in Edmonton. And, Connor Hellebuyck has he's done a lot of really impressive things, obviously, on the ice, but some of his endeavors off the ice as well are impressive. And, he really opened up about some of those projects. And, yeah, I thought it was a great revealing interview, aside of Connor Hellebuyck, that we don't see all that often. And I think that setting and the timing of it kind of worked out really well for him to flourish. And you know what, Huss, we go back to all the talk about Jets attendance and re-engaging with the community and the importance of that. I can tell you an interview like that where Connor Hellebuyck kind of lets his guard down a bit and kind of shows, I would say almost a vulnerable side at times. To me, that goes so far in terms of of building those relationships. Because I think a lot of people came away from that seeing Connor Hellebuyck in a different light than maybe they had in the past. And that's a good thing for the Jets when you're trying to reconnect in a lot of ways with the community. And a guy like Connor Hellebuyck, you just invested $59.5 million in him for 7 more seasons. He's going to be here probably till the end of his career. I thought it was great. Great for Hellebuyck on a personal level and good for the Jets brand as a whole.
Yeah, no, it really was. I mean, longtime listeners know. I mean, if Hellebuyck's in front of a microphone, I'm listening. I mean, he's the most interesting guy, maybe one of the most interesting guys I've ever come across in hockey. And
he is.
I mean, he's well thought. I will admit, sitting in my seat at Rogers Arena, I was wondering about 6 minutes into the game how that interview was going to be. Because we've also seen him not be in too good of a mood when things don't go well. But listen, he stepped up. It was a great time to catch him. And as they say, we'll have a couple clips. Just on the way out, quick thought on the Blues coming into tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they've obviously undergone a real turnover. Some of their veteran guys, names that you've come to know for a long time, your Tarasenko's and your O'Reillys, those guys are gone. There's a bit of a youth movement happening. I think the Blues aren't rebuilding as much as they're trying to retool. They won the Stanley Cup, obviously, as often happens when teams win the Cup. Players price themselves out of the market, so they've had to undergo a lot of changes. And they've got some really impressive young players for sure. And, one thing about Scott O'Neill mentioned this morning, Craig Berube, no matter who's on the roster, you could have a team of absolute no-namers. He's going to get the most out of that crew. They're going to play hard. And so I'm really anxious to see the Blues up close tonight. This is the first Central Division game of the year for the Jets. And how they fare in their own division is going to go a long way to where they finish in their division. The Jets will have 25 more divisional games before the year is out. No question they'd like to get things going on the right foot tonight. But yeah, I expect a typical Jets Blues game, which is to say tight checking, hard hitting, probably not very high scoring. Going back to my original point, Huss, I smell overtime in a shootout. Pray for me and my deadline tonight.
2 points for the home team. I won't be worrying about you too much. Just saying, Mike.
All right.
But listen, have a great one tonight. Thanks as always for the great chat. We'll talk to you next week. And are you on the road?
Kenny is off to Detroit and Montreal. And then next week, I'm heading out to Vegas and my first look at Mullet and St. Louis as well. So, he's got this one. I got next week's.
Perfect. Well, enjoy the week at home. And most importantly, this game tonight. Thanks for doing this, Mike.
You bet, Huss. Take care.
There's Mike McIntyre. Great chat on the Winnipeg Jets from the Winnipeg Free Press. Again, 7:45 puck drop tonight as part of the Frozen Frenzy with all 32 teams in. Now, we gave you a Bomber update earlier today, just coming out of practice. No Zach Caleros, no Nick Dembski. Certainly looks like Drew Brown is going to be the quarterback for Winnipeg in this meaningless final regular season game before they enjoy a bye and find out who they'll be hosting in the West Final. Of course, all our Bomber reports on Winnipeg Sports Talk are brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers and the Princess Auto Tailgate Zone, which is going to be getting going 3:30 p.m., 2 hours before kickoff on November 11th. Make sure you got your tickets and get out to be part of what should be another amazing crowd, amazing atmosphere as the Bombers look to get back to the Grey Cup. Princess Auto, of course, is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Do have to thank the gang down at Consolidated Supply. Just great partners of ours and great partners of so many of yours as the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, golf carts, and vehicles from the Club Car Collection is the exclusive dealer in Manitoba. But Consolidated Supply also has tons of other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchen options as well. And don't forget, 12 months a year, they are the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Consolidated Supply has so much for you, your property, and your business waiting. Get down and see them at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or check them out and find out more online at cte.ca. Well, there's so much going on right now. Jet season in full swing. Lots of new players like Carey and Iafallo that are making their presence known with the Winnipeg Jets. And, of course, you got the Bombers playoffs coming up. So whether you're needing new Jets gear or Bomber gear, the one place you can hit a home run in both departments is, of course, Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway, the undisputed sports superstore in town. In addition to a great selection of both Jets and Bombers merchandise, you've got Sea Bears, you've got the National Football League, all 32 teams represented. And of course, now that winter is here, it is hockey season in Winnipeg, and Royal Sports has been the locally owned hockey headquarters for players for over 40 years, with the best hockey selection in town for players of all skill levels and all ages. Get on down and see them, 750 Pembina Highway. Give them a follow on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, great night last night at BP, watching the Vikes get that big win. Listen, no better place to enjoy Monday Night Football than your local Boston Pizza, but it's not just Monday nights that BP's rocking. Listen, if you're not at the game tonight, we've got Jets Blues. You've got Game 7 between the D-backs and Phillies. NBA opening night. If you're not at Canada Life Center, the next best place to be is Boston Pizza, enjoying those gourmet wings, ice-cold schooners, and incredible BP pizza selections, not to mention the new Appies on the menu. Check it out today at your local Boston Pizza, and if you're staying in, order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's get to this right now. And again, I mentioned this with Mike. There's been such amazing reaction to Connor Hellebuyck's visit with Scott Oake on After Hours. And, you know, you should go, if you haven't already, and watch the entire 20-minute segment. But as Mike mentioned, it was a really unique opportunity to hear Hellebuyck expand a little bit more in who he is, his decision to stay here in Winnipeg, his goals, and what he likes to do off the ice. And we wanted to get a few of these Helly highlights for you because we saw everybody chatting about it yesterday in chat. We just didn't have enough time to get it into. So here's some highlights of Connor Hellebuyck's visit with Scott Oake. Certainly one that I think was most of interest of everybody that follows the Winnipeg Jets and supports the home team is Hellebuyck on signing long-term with Winnipeg on Thanksgiving.
You know, I thought that was very crucial. I wanted to see kind of how the layout he was thinking without going into too much detail, because you don't want too much information, but you want to know what's affecting your decision. So when you sit down and he's telling you all the ideas that he is so focused on trying to win a cup as well, and really the main thing that I got from it all is how much they believe in me. And I've surrounded myself around with people that believe in me as much as I believe in myself. And when I slept on it, I just thought, how can you leave what has gotten you to where you are now?
All right, so there's Hellebuyck on the decision to stay here in Winnipeg and sign. Also a really interesting bit on his background emulating goalies, and a highlight, I believe, from the Iceplex during training camp of a young goaltender emulating his hero behind the net. Check this one out.
That's not something that I get to see too often, because I'm not big on social media. So, I did get to see that, and I was really shocked because it's like full 360. Yeah. And he's doing a great job. Look for that kid to be coming up and doing the right things. And, that can be lost sometimes in the business side of things. And just to go back and look at the youth and how much fun they have from watching us and just being around us. And I think that's crucial to remember that this is for the next generation as well.
All right, so there's a little bit more from Hellebuyck. Now, in these long-form interviews, and I agree wholeheartedly with Mike. I mean, Scott does such a great job of, obviously, the preparation to be ready to ask questions. We'll get great background stories on these players. But for a player like Hellebuyck, especially outside of this market, that I think is relatively unknown. And with a very, very interesting backstory, but this is one that I think even Winnipeg fans might not have been aware. This is Hellebuyck on joining the Odessa Jackalopes as a young player, the team that the Jets ended up drafting him from in the 5th round.
You know, that was a guy that really believed in me from the start. And I truly believe if I did not go there, I wouldn't be where I am today. Because the people I met are the people that I hold true to my heart. And I still talk to this day and help me get through what I do on a day-to-day basis. So honestly, the NHL was the last thing on my mind at that moment. At that moment, I'm like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to make it the best I possibly can. And I'm going to make this team and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to the next step, whatever it is, the USHL, college. And then right around that's when I met Joe Clark, and he was just so monumental for my mental game. And then I was starting to learn about video and how much work you can put in. And then you got you're playing a ton, so you got to manage all that, which wasn't great then, but I was young, so I could handle it. So there's so much that going into it, and I'm on my own, so I just have all this time to just work on my craft. And then having him there, he wanted to do the same with me, not like force it on me. He wanted to do it with me. Joe Clark, he wanted to do it with me. He wanted to help me proceed and go after my future. And you know, that was so crucial to have all that. And then around Christmas time, as all these colleges are calling, I'm like, what is going on here? This is so new to me. I followed my brother's footsteps trying to make juniors, and once that did, it snap of your fingers, it just started to just spiral, and next thing you know, the NHL teams are calling.
Connor Hellebuyck, more from his after-hours visit on Sportsnet after Hockey Night in Canada. I have often told listeners and all of you, listen, we all know it's important to believe in yourself and whatever you're doing. There is nobody that believes in himself like Connor Hellebuyck, and we've heard that a number of times, certainly heading into the season as to when he was deciding about what his future would be. Here's Hellebuyck on his belief in himself.
Yeah, it's crucial to believe in yourself. If you don't believe you're going to do something, you're never going to achieve it, because you won't do the right things to start trying to achieve those things. That's why belief, and I learned that at a young age, at like 18, to really set your goals and believe that you're gonna do them, and then you just naturally start doing things to get you there.
Another funny part coming out of the belief in himself was Scott was asked if he ever gives up bad goals.
I mean, I want them all back. So, what's a bad goal if you want them all back?
All goalies are that way, right? They don't want anything going by them.
I mean, I'm in there talking with the backup goalie after the first goal. I was like, man, I hit my glove. I read it perfectly. I hit my glove. I don't understand why it's going in. And, you know, you can't get too tied up on goals in this league, because it'll crumble you, and it'll set you back a little bit. And really, I mean, this has been a Jets mantra for all the years that I've been here. If we give up 2, that's probably all they're getting.
The never wavering confidence of Connor Hellebuyck on display. Another interesting bit was a question about former fan favorite Dustin Byfuglien, his connection with Hellebuyck, and getting him out on the ice fishing in the Winnipeg winter.
Yeah, I mean, when you're coming up in this league and you're trying to just make it, and do whatever it takes to make it. And he was a veteran guy that kind of helped me understand that this city is fun. There's things to do. Yeah. I shortly after arriving talked to him about fishing, and then he was talking about ice fishing, how fun ice fishing can be, and it's a good way to get away. And so he would take me, and for the first year of him taking me, I was like, man, this is awesome. Yeah. Thanks for showing me the ropes. He was showing me the ropes, and then he left me all alone. So I kind of had to figure out how to do it all myself. But at that point, I was set up well. And now every time I go through Minnesota, I try to stop by his place and go fishing with him. Yeah,
his ice fishing exploits are legendary. You got Iafallo now, who I hear is a fisherman too now. So he's going to...
Yes, he's a big outdoorsman. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Could fishing with Buff be its own TV show?
Oh, absolutely. Would he want it, though? That's the question. He likes to get away when he gets out there.
Cody Magnuson asks, your favorite fishing spots in Manitoba?
There you go.
Oh, that's a good one. I like to go Prudence Creek around the south basin of Lake Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. I find some good fish in there, and you just got to chase them around sometimes. Walleye, load up in an area and you got to follow them down. And I have a bunch of buddies out there, so I usually text them for information. Makes my job a lot easier. Just go right to the fish instead of trying to find them. But yeah, that area seems to be great.
Hellebuyck on his love of the outdoors and fishing. Now, one other thing, we wanted to make sure we got this clip in. We remember last year, Hellebuyck worked on a children's book focusing on mental health. It's called Bucky Beats the Blues, and he talked a little bit about how that came to be as well.
Yeah, so the purpose of these books is to help the next generation start talking, the mental health. It's more about communicating with an adult and not just absorbing such a hard emotional, I guess, feeling by yourself. It's about talking. It's about opening up. It's not about holding everything in and letting things spiral. I talk about at the back, it's my story of how I went through some mental health things, and at the front, it's Weasel, which is a little kid going through it, and at the middle, it meets at the same thing we're trying to talk about, and that's trying to get the kids to talk to their parents or talk to someone they trust or talk to a loved one, anyone, really. Just talk about your feelings and get it out. There is definitely times where you need to be tough, but I still think if you talk that out, you can learn those times when it's time to be tough. And that's why it's so important to just talk. And this book really drives home to talk to someone. Don't suffer in silence.
Oh, man, some great comments in the chat. I see Phyllis and Bridget both bought this book for youngsters in the family. And Chris Jets fan saying, Hellebuyck is such a class act. Wonderful Jets ambassador. No doubt. Here's one more from Helly to finish it up. And this is Helly on his advice to himself.
Probably stay patient and work hard and work smart. Make sure you're working smart every day. Hard work can go the wrong direction if you're not working smart. I think that was kind of like my upbringing, is I wasn't just working hard. Everything had a meaning. Everything was detail purposed.
All right. Some great advice for young people in general, not just young hockey players and not just young goaltenders, but and again, great stuff from Scott Oak. The Sportsnet YouTube, I believe, has it posted up in its entirety. Highly recommended you check that out. All right, we're going to get to all of these games in the National Hockey League tonight in just a minute, but we do have a little bit more audio from the Jets room. We've talked a lot about Alex Iafallo today. He'll be front and center. He already has been a big contributor on the power play, had been playing with Adam Lowry and Nito Niederreiter on a line that was, arguably line 2 for the Winnipeg Jets, certainly in how they were being used. But with Mason Appleton being bumped off that top line, it was Iafallo's opportunity. And Iafallo talked about being moved alongside Connor and Scheifele in the absence of Gabriel Velarde.
Yeah, it was good. It was, they're pretty agile, moving pucks down low there. So I'm just trying to get open, find spots to get the puck to them, and they're fast. So just keeping up and pushing the pace.
Fast players, but high IQ players too. Is there a trick to finding a way to fit in with guys that have play a game a certain way and a high IQ way?
For sure, I think it's a lot of communication maybe before. So they talk a lot on the bench to me, or just before face-offs, just kind of stuff like that helps you learn where they're going to be, and they're really good players. So just try to get the timing down.
And one more clip from Iafallo, who was asked if he has to change the way he plays based on the line that he's on now with Scheifele and Connor.
Not really. It's more of just kind of like talking with him. Really, just get the connection before the game and before the shift, whatever it may be. If there's something going on, just try to figure it out. And everybody's. It's easy when the guys are great and. You got a little relationship before, you understand where they're going to be on the ice, D-zone, whatever it may be, and so probably just communication, really.
There's Alex Iafallo of the Winnipeg Jets, and Reem, he has been, I was excited to see how he would look and where he would fit in, and I kind of, speculated, throughout the summer after the trade that probably a guy that could be playing potentially on the second line, likely on the third. But, much like a few of the players that have come over, it seems like they bring a defensive aptitude that is very much welcome on that line. But as we've seen on the power play, has been able to contribute offensively as well with a number of goals so far this season. And as much as we'd all love to see Gabriel Vilardi back, that's not happening anytime soon. Big opportunity and big chance for IFL to continue to prove his worth and his value to his new team.
Yeah, I mean, he's played top line before. He played with Dustin Brown and Anze Kopitar, our agent Kempe. He's played with talented players, and he kind of brings a skill that the guy who hard forechecker goes and gets the puck out, and on the power play he's contributed as well. So he's really fit in. I think his style of play is something the Jets didn't really have. So, and they tried Mason Halpton. I think because he was a right shot, they wanted to give him a chance there. And if I was a left shot playing on the right side, but that sometimes that works out. And look, he's got 4 points in 5 games, has 3 goals, point per game player. So here to see how this line goes. And the Jets are a favorite tonight against the St. Louis Blues. So certainly going to be a lot of opportunity to add on to that total.
Yeah, we'll get to those favorites and those lines on a massive sports day in just a second in the Coolbet Lines. Don't forget, gang, if you're heading to the game tonight, maybe it's your first game of the season, take a walk down that downstairs concourse. Looks completely different at the north end, and it includes the new craft beer corner. If you're on the lower bowl, you'll be able to get our favorite local beer, Little Brown Jug, now an official partner of the Winnipeg Jets, on the concourse level in both the north end at Craft Beer Corner, as well the local beers are available in the south end. And if you're in the upper bowl tonight, you're going to want to pop down to section 310, the newly revamped Craft Beer Corner as well. And by the way, in the beginning, it was the beers were all available in cans, which they are. But they've also got the local beers on tap as well. If you're looking for Little Brown Jug at the game, that is where to find it. Of course, Little Brown Jug now also a partner of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and available at Blue Bomber games in the Poutineery and hometown sections. And listen, Little Brown Jug also available wherever they sell great beer. But the best place to find it, William Avenue, the brewery and tap room. Not as much patio time left for the summer, but a great spot to meet with friends and try everything that Little Brown Jug is cooking up. Find them online at littlebrownjug.ca as well with local delivery options. And, hey, we had a great chat yesterday with Eric Swar from the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, and the MJ Showcase continues today and tomorrow out at Seven Oaks. Got to give a big shout out to Nick and Nikki DQ, because, of course, they kind of put down roots in the Niverville area with the Niverville DQ. They've added to it with the new PETA pit in Niverville, and also a big role in getting junior hockey to Niverville with the newest franchise, the Niverville Nighthawks of the MJHL. Of course, if you want to pop by and see Nick and Nikki in the city, they got 3 DQs in Winnipeg, in addition to the Niverville location. DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's as well. And if you need PETA Pit catering, you can hit them up on X at PETA Pit Niverville. All right, Remis, let's do this. What a night that we have for sports fans. And especially if you like to put a little sprinkle on a few games, you got plenty of options tonight. Starting off with Major League Baseball over with our Coolbet Lines. The Phillies are minus 164 favorites to win Game 7 and move on to take on the Texas Rangers in the World Series. Arizona Diamondbacks, the road underdogs at plus 145. We got 2 games in the NBA tonight to kick off the season. Lakers and Nuggets. Nuggets 5.5-point favorites at home. And the Suns and the Golden State Warriors as well. Steph Curry and the Warriors, minus 139 favorites in the NBA. But it's a full slate of games in the NHL. I'm going to run through these, Reem, and then I want your favorite picks if you're going to be putting together maybe, say, a 3-gamer. Starts off with the Leafs and Caps. Leafs minus 172 on the money line. And again, that is just to win the game. Can win it in regulation, overtime, shootout. Washington Capitals plus 146. That's a 5 o'clock start. 5:30, it's the Ducks and Blue Jackets. Columbus minus 141 favorites. The Ducks plus 120. No Patrick Laine. He's on the IR. Buffalo lost last night to Montreal. They're one of only 2 teams that played last night that'll be on the second end of back-to-backs. They're a plus 158 underdog in Ottawa, taking on the Senators. Sens minus 188 favorites at home. Pretty close game here, and I'm thinking about leaning on the underdog in this one. Carolina, minus 123. Tampa, plus 105. Sebastian Aho still day-to-day. Not sure whether he's in the lineup tonight. But the Canes finishing off a crazy road trip that took them all up the west coast of California and now all the way to Florida right now. Canes minus 123. Devils and Canadians. Habs with that win last night. They're on back-to-backs. Devils minus 234 favorites. Don't mind the puck line on them, actually, at plus 107 to win by 2. The Dallas Stars and Pittsburgh Penguins get underway just after 6:30. Dallas favored on the road, minus 133 in Pittsburgh. Penguins plus 113. We've got the Sharks and the Panthers. Sharks, one of the weakest teams in the NHL, always an underdog. They're plus 205. Panthers minus 249. Avalanche on Long Island to take on the Islanders. Colorado minus 142. Islanders plus 120. 7:15 our time is the Kraken and Red Wings. Detroit, winners, I believe, of 5 in a row right now. Minus 122 favorites at home against the Kraken, who are plus 104. Just after 7:30, we're going to get the Boston Bruins and Chicago Blackhawks dropping the puck. Bedard at home, plus 190. Home dogs are the Blackhawks. The Bruins, who incredibly have picked up right where they left off in the regular season, winning every game so far. They're minus 230. Then we've got the Blues and Jets. The Jets were a huge favorite earlier. It was minus 193. That number has come down a little bit to minus 182, but still a significant favorite. St. Louis plus 154. Oilers and Wild just after 8 o'clock our time. Wild minus 118. Oilers without McDavid plus 101. Just after 8:15, we get the Canucks and Predators. Nashville minus 121. Vancouver plus 103. Road Dogs. The Rangers and Calgary Flames are going to drop the puck just past 8:45. Calgary plus 113. Home Dogs. Rangers minus 133 favorites. The Coyotes and Kings go at it just after 9:30 tonight. LA minus 176 home favorites. Coyotes plus 149 on the road. And then the final game of 16 tonight is the Vegas Golden Knights, still undefeated, minus 192 favorites at home against the Philadelphia Flyers, who have actually surprised a few teams this year, but Philly a big underdog, plus 162 in Vegas. What a lineup, Remo. What are some of your favorite selections tonight?
Oh man, there's so many games here. Rangers over the Flames. I'll go with some underdog picks. What about Kraken over Detroit? They've got off to a bit of a slow start here. And then
I love Detroit in that game, minus 122. I mean, considering the way those teams have played so far, I can't believe that Detroit isn't a bigger favorite.
That's true. Lightning as a home dog, I agree, seems interesting. In Carolina, Aho, I think he's like game time. Anderson practiced, he missed a couple games. He's game time, and yeah, I would go Ottawa over Buffalo, and Maple Leafs over Washington. We'll see how it goes. We did get some NHL news just while we were reading those. I got the alert that Gary Bettman upheld the Rasmus Anderson suspension, so the Flames will be without him tonight, and the next 3 games won't play in the Heritage Classic.
Well, do the crime, you do the time. Sorry about the appeal there, Rasmus. So no McDavid likely, and definitely no Rasmus Anderson for the Winter Classic. Now, these aren't up yet, but if those of you that like the Lock Shop or like to jump on a few of our exclusives at Coolbet, needless to say, Dusty and I cooked up a few today, and shout out to everyone that rode with us last night. Another winner on our parlay, back-to-back days. Things are good in the Lock Shop right now. Our Lock Shop partner parlay, we're taking the Devils on the puck line at minus 1.5. We're taking the Wings, and we're taking the Lightning to win. And the ride with Huss, I've got just a straight 3-gamer. Rangers to beat Calgary, Wild to beat the Oilers, Avalanche to beat the New York Islanders. That one should be in at around 5-1 or just above it. Dusty's got an interesting one. Bedard, McKinnon, Draisaitl, and Hughes all to record a point. And Dusty's got one. I don't mind this one as well. Panthers to win in regulation, Senators and Kings money line. So all of those are going to be up very shortly in the Coolbet exclusives. We'll give you a nice number on those, kind of as opposed to doing them yourselves. And as I say, Dusty mentioned to me at the end of the program today, Reem, Terry Jones of Edmonton Media Royalty put together a 16-game parlay today for the action in the NHL. And I said, Jonesy's had like a 50-year Hall of Fame career, and it would all be dwarfed if he could actually hit all 16 games tonight together on about a 240,000 to 1 parlay. It's definitely a fun night if you do like to put some games together and get into the DraftKings contest, because we're never going to have more hockey than we do tonight. Only the second day, as Whyno said, in NHL history, all 32 teams are playing on the same night.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. Staggered start times, 15 minutes. I'm seeing a lot of people complaining about it being on why is it on a Tuesday? And maybe you could have complained about your local market if you're actually going to the game. Here it's at 7:45. I know the Detroit game, 8:15 Eastern. There, Detroit. They played in the Western Conference all those years in the Eastern time zone. So yeah, I can see some downsides. But hey, I like if you're trying to attract fans. ESPN has been doing a great job promoting hockey. They got Pat McAfee talking about it more, PK Subban on there, and John Buccigross going hard. I mean, they talk about it during college football. This was ESPN's idea. The Tuesday worked best for ESPN, where they don't even have football Sunday, Monday, college football Saturday. Thursday is the National NBA Day, so it's really like Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll see how this goes. I wonder if they'll do it more. I think too bad that Canada doesn't get the whip around show, but I'm sure all Canadians are going to be watching their own teams anyways, maybe not as invested in the full product. Although, when the Jets aren't playing, I'll tune in or I'll watch after the late game. So I'm excited to see how this turns out, and maybe they'll do it again.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone actually has Sportsnet Plus, but if you have it, apparently that's where you'll be able to get the feed of Bucci doing the...
They have it on there? I thought they were just going to have all the games. I think the ESPN feed is only
really?
Is only in the U.S.
Okay. Well, I don't have it either, and I'm going to the game. So
yeah.
Anyways, if you find a way to watch it in Canada, let us know tomorrow what you thought of it, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people from a media perspective kind of following what ESPN is doing tonight. But I'm here for it. And as we talk with Whyno, if this works well, this is something I think we'll see probably on a Saturday post-football season. But right now, with ESPN's commitments to so many other things that, frankly, take precedence over the NHL just because of viewership and money involved, it wasn't going to happen during football season on the weekend. So we're going to do it on this Super Tuesday, starting off at 5 o'clock, 7:45, or just afterwards here in Winnipeg. The Jets and Blues will get at it. And then that final game just after 10 o'clock our time, Vegas Golden Knights and the Philadelphia Flyers. Great show today. Big thanks to Stephen Whyno at SWhyno on Twitter, and of course our pal Mike McIntyre for jumping on. Great stuff with Remis, getting those clips both from the Jets locker room and from Connor Hellebuyck's after-hours visit with Scott Oak on the weekend. And now it's time to get ready for a huge sports night. If you're at the game, maybe we'll see you there. Come and say hi if you do. And otherwise, we will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. We'll break it all down. Tonight's game against the Blues, and a look ahead to the road trip as the Jets hit the road tomorrow to Detroit Thursday, and a Saturday night game against Les Canadiens in Montreal. Big thanks to all of our sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, and all of you for jumping in with us. Enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully we'll be talking about a 3-3 team hitting the road tomorrow. Jets and Blues tonight, 7:45. Have a great one, everyone. Enjoy the games, a big sports night, and we'll see you tomorrow on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.